and offload directly into the coal-fired plant. So we're talking significant infrastructure for the energy side. And what I thought was interesting when they were talking about future RO is they are in the process of exploring a significant energy source. I believe it's both oil and gas off the coast. And if they can develop that, they're looking at driving their energy costs down and their air quality up. And they're thinking that that would be a benefit to going even further on their seawater desalinization project.
So they don't use solar in a significant or substantial way. This is all traditional power generation.
Well, the plant that we toured was a great big giant coal-fired plant.
Greg, when you quoted $6 million for one of those little mobile units, did that exclude O&M costs? That was just the capital cost of buying the unit?
That's the capital cost, and that's not all the capital cost. You know, it depends what type of system that you want to plug in, but you're going to have all your stainless steel delivery system until you can have a blend, some type of mixing in. From what we could discover, it was probably about a 50-50 blend with fresh water versus this treated water to make it non-corrosive. But so you're going to have that infrastructure plus the cost of your injection well. Then you're going to have your annual O&Ms. These were the claim to fame or their wares that they were basically marketing was the energy efficiency of these particular modular devices for whether it's Rotec or IDE technologies. But there's a handful of those leaders. But yeah, that's kind of skinny. Probably be 10, 12 million bucks up front. Depends how far you took it, whether you took it to the other side of a plume 6 miles away or you took it into a manifold where you could hook it into the system. If that was close proximity, it'd obviously be less on the stainless infrastructure.
How many years service do the RO upgrade provide?
Don't know the answer to that, but that's a good question because that is another significant maintenance cost. Is your power and your you have some maintenance associated with the membranes, but after a while you have to actually replace them. I don't know about the pressures and the tax that's on those. But so for example, some of our membranes we're looking at somewhere around a 4-year life, 5-year life. I don't know how that compares with the desalinization membranes. But that's a good question because that's a significant cost.
When they're cleaning up the wastewater, what do they blend that with?
You mean as far as their use?
Well, you talked about being really corrosive, the RO product, and you're talking about cleaning up earlier their domestic wastewater. I guess maybe that's getting used for agricultural purposes.
That's the way we understood it. The majority, 95 to almost 100% of it was being cycled directly. Now how they actually deal with their infrastructure, whether that's why they all have all the metal lines, I don't know if we ever really hit that issue of how do you prevent it from tearing all your lines up. Most of all of the irrigation scenarios, typically HDPE type tape, above ground lines, and even all the manifold hubs that we looked at, pretty much it was either stainless, their mixed basins, their filter blends, was either in stainless or plastic.
I was just thinking out in the future, if we do have to treat our wastewater, and you have to blend something back with it, you wouldn't want to be blending wastewater back.
Well, I don't believe the treated wastewater wasn't the RO run. It was more of a conventional wastewater treatment facility, so it's basically gray water that they were recycling for their ag uses. Non-potable waters.
Alan, do you think you've learned anything in the current aquifer storage and recovery project that could apply to treating lower quality sources of water? I mean, certainly that's a very different source you're using now, but injecting it into a resource.
It's at least got me curious to look at the chloride migration problem. You know, that's kind of easy because it's got a longer fuse to kind of put off. It's not on fire in your lap, you know, so you're not thinking about solutions right today. But I know that's a problem, and it's coming. I know ASR helps, but it isn't the final solution for it. Are there other things that we can do to make that a sustainable water resource? That's for the municipal side. It's very important that a water source be sustainable. It's not like a mineral deposit where you mine it and then it's gone. We're looking for water sources that are going to be there for our kids and our kids' kids, a sustainable use. Well, chloride migration threatens that as being a sustainable use. And when you look at how the water is appropriated there in the aquifers, and the city's part of that. I mean, we're pulling water out of there too. And when you look at the aquifers in terms of natural recharge, because unlike some aquifers, you actually have natural recharge into that aquifer. If you can't find that balance, then it's going to accelerate the migration. So are there some things that we can do both in keeping that a sustainable water source in terms of volume and as a sustainable water source in terms of quality? I'm very curious about what that could be, and I saw some of the technologies there that made me want to ask some more questions. And we've got some more talks that we're going to have with the USGS on future modeling and looking at what sorts of impacts there could be. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Alan, one slide you had indicated the extent of the plume. Was that the total extent of the plume, or was that just a piece and you didn't see the rest of it off the end of the slide?
The latter, I was showing one concentration level, but probably a better map or figure would have been the one that Greg showed that showed the various concentrations. And it showed it 3D because it's not the same at every depth. It's got different characteristics the deeper you go.
But it is a finite known quantity or known volume. Is that what we believe? No, or
It's an estimate. Well, actually, the expert is probably sitting right behind you. That I might ask Don to help answer that question if you would.
Well, yes, there's a pretty good idea of its limits. There's certainly a number of monitoring wells that the groundwater management district put in at different depths. I had suggested one location that might be good on the advancing front where it's going between a couple of wells, but otherwise, yes, it's pretty well known.
well, the reason why I asked, you suggested that you can drill a well at the backside of the clean up that local area. Is it feasible to drill a number of wells down and really capture the bulk of that salinity, clean it up entirely, and not then have the risk for future migration to plume? I mean, is it such a large volume that it would be so cost prohibitive to do that sort of exercise, or is that thinkable?
But I think probably it would be cost prohibitive just from the volume.
Other thoughts, actually, that was really kicking that around, saying one need to treat it since it's such a huge volume. It's unusable currently to either water supplies or agriculture. It's a huge resource. What other ideas? How do we start thinking outside the box? What about an ethanol plant? Something with a lot of stainless infrastructure. How do you get a win-win out of some of those scenarios? If you have to pay to develop those types of infrastructural costs, set something on top of it, suck the salt out of it, utilize it in a secondary source, sell it as an ethanol. That's some of the ideas that we were kind of kicking around, seeing. Then you have a lot more complexities with the Appropriations Act. I know Lane's back there giving me the evil eye. But we have appropriations. It's currently in an IGUPA, but there's some ideas. There's some possibilities, seeing what's the best avenue, what's the smartest way to do it, the cheapest to have, whether it's a wind to prevent it from migrating into the well fields of Wichita, or how do we have an agricultural output, how do you develop that particular area? Obviously, it'll enhance a local resource from, there's some thoughts, there's some ideas that's a little bit exciting. Think that through with the right, you bounce that idea by a handful of different kinds of investors and some eyes light up.
I just wanted to make a comment. Tracy mentioned I had the opportunity to go to Chicago with a couple of our largest water suppliers and met with City of Chicago, Milwaukee, Des Moines, a large public water suppliers. And one of the things that impressed me are similarities with Israel, necessity being the mother of invention, and again, those similarities. The amount of tracking that we do on gallons per capita a day, the state ranges from, Lane will help me if I'm wrong, but it's roughly in the neighborhood of maybe just over 100 to maybe close to 300. These other cities had no idea what kind of gallon per capita day they were using. They don't regularly meter their water use. even in the city of Chicago, they were moving into this thing where they were doing zoned metering, where they would periodically kind of do water audits. But, you know, regular ongoing water metering just didn't happen. And so, you know, Kansas has had to try to be out in front of some of these challenges. But, yeah, Chicago, they've got a big lake there. So, and of course, they've rerouted rivers and things to keep it from being polluted. But it was a, you know, really fascinating, I think, a view of the visioning that we're going through, you know, to try to keep all of these ideas in mind is really valuable. Thank you, Master Phil.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Tracy.
A final question, anybody want to ask the last question? No? Friday afternoon, now, you can have them all in. Well, Rick did ask about the clear head shampoo, and he couldn't ship it. I couldn't bring it back, but I did look online. I could get it online, so I appreciate you. I want to thank you all for coming and have a great weekend.